How's it going, YouTube? Tyler Polaris here, guys. Gonna be doing a quick video here on giving you the differences in chained versus hinged handcuffs and why you might want one over the other. Give you my personal opinions and experiences and stuff like that to maybe help you make a decision. Okay, first off, chained handcuffs look like this. Hinged handcuffs look like this. Had to really dumb that down because some people don't know what they are. Okay, first off, we'll do chained and then hinged, and then I'll go into both, okay? First, chained handcuffs are the most commonly carried handcuff in law enforcement. Most people carry them because they've been around longer. They work well. They're reliable. Same thing. They work well. However, okay, if you have smaller hands like me, when you're cuffing people and stuff, you don't have as much control with the chained handcuff as you would a hinged handcuff, okay? Hinged handcuffs are easier to apply to compliant subjects. I want to say that. Compliant is the key word there. Most of the time, unless if they are bigger shouldered and stuff and wide, then you almost always have to use chained or you use two sets. And I'll get into that here in a little bit, okay? Chained handcuffs, though, are very much preferred if you are having to fight with somebody, because hinged handcuffs, there's no flex in them, and you have to forcefully bring the wrist to the cuff. With chained, you got all this mobility. So you can slap one on one way and you can slap another one any other way. So if you're fighting with somebody, chained is the way to go. I carry one set of each. Hinged are my primary that I go to, and if I have a larger subject or I have a fight of any type, I go to chained. However, it seems like everybody else always pulls cuffs for the fights, so I don't think I've ever actually used my chained handcuffs in a fight. But I've only used them to extend someone who is wide. And that's what's good about it. If you've got one-to-one, you can hook one like this in the middle. Let's say this one's on the outside's on their right wrist, you hook it in the middle, and this one's on their left wrist, and it's really not that uncomfortable for them. That basically, no, it doesn't, sorry. With the different cuffs, you can do, it limits to what kind of cuffing techniques you can do and stuff like that. Like I said, obviously with chained, you have a lot more freedom. So if you have time to think, for example, one time I always use chained is if I am having someone, if I'm cuffing someone who has a hand on their head and I'm pulling it down behind their back. That is one time I will always use chained for the sole purpose of that. If you hook one up here and you pull that arm down and you pull this other arm down to it, stuff doesn't always line up like you plan when you're, heat of the moment, when you're thinking like that. Even in training, it doesn't line up. If it doesn't line up, it's fine. With a chained handcuff, you can always just hook it and you can always fix it, okay? So chained handcuffs are a lot more forgiving, and they are easier to, they're easier to get on in more cuffing situations, okay? It's optimal. The chained handcuff works in all cuffing situations, and it works very well. If you have smaller hands, like I said, though, for me, I know I'm not the only one out there, not like I have super small hands, but you just kind of, you got to change stuff up. Everybody has a different grip of how they want to do it. There's so many different handcuffing grips out there. You just kind of got to do what works for you with chained. That's the reason why I like hinged, though, because you really don't have too many options of how you can cuff somebody. It's a very solid, rigid piece. You have a lot more control of the cuffs, but like I said, they work really only well on compliant subjects. In a fight, if you get on a hinged handcuff, if you get one cuff on, you might as well just get out a set of chained and hook it up to the other one, because you are going to more than likely injure that suspect or party trying to fight to get their arm to the other cuff. And it's happened, where you get one on, and it's sometimes, honestly, in general, it's easier to just extend it and just get the damn cuffs on. That's the priority, is getting them on. Doesn't matter how they go on or what they look like, you just got to get them on. But a lot of the times in a fight, you would rather just be able, for example, to use a set of chained, get them on, because once you get, let's say you got one on, you're like, oh shit, I need to get this on. Well, then you got to sit there and leave the fight to pull out another set, or somebody has to hook them together in the middle to get the other hand. It happens all the time though, okay? But working smarter, not harder, is always the best rule to go by, okay? One thing I did forget to add in the beginning, okay? Side by side, okay? Chained handcuffs are significantly longer than hinged handcuffs, so that's something to keep in mind too with people with wider shoulders and stuff like that. Honestly, that basically sums it up, guys. I mean, they work the same way. It's just, it comes down to preference, okay? And you can Google this stuff all day and you're gonna see people give their 2 cents, okay? My 2 cents here is this. I carry both. I carry both because I prefer the hinged, but there's a lot of times when you have to use chained. There's sometimes you just have to. But if I have a choice, I'm gonna use hinged anytime I can. But it's good to carry both because I'm personally a believer that if you only carry one set of handcuffs, that I guess, I don't know, I think everybody should carry 2 sets of handcuffs. And the reason being is, you know, like I said, you get a lot of people who are fat and stuff like that, or big shoulders, big muscular people, and sometimes, you know, you don't have somebody there to hand you another set of cuffs. Or if you forget your handcuffs at the jail, which does happen, then you're like, oh, I still have a set of handcuffs, because nothing's more embarrassing than when you're about to arrest somebody and you reach down for your handcuffs and you got nothing. You got to call for somebody to come bring you handcuffs. Most people carry cuffs in their car, extra cuffs and stuff like that. But I'm a firm believer in carrying 2 sets because it's always good to have more than you need. One thing I do want to bring up is weight, okay? Hinged handcuffs, mine are both Smith & Wesson. That's the brand of handcuffs I like due to the level of security. There's videos out there you can watch where these will be, Smith & Wessons are the only one I've seen that will not pop open. But with like the Peerless ones, with the ones with the button, they're a lot easier to double lock and stuff like that. If you slam them, Newton's law of physics makes it so the button pops out and they become undouble locked and people can get out of them easier. So Smith & Wessons are the most secure base model handcuff out there on the market. They're double locking them, you know, in this little slit can sometimes be a pain in the ass, and it's sometimes, you know, difficult to remember which way it goes, and it can be a pain in the ass, especially when you get somebody who is a pain in the ass. Multiple pain in the asses put together equals for a giant pain in the ass. So overall though, with weight, hinged handcuffs are significantly heavier. Like significantly, and you'll notice that if you put them on your belt. You'll notice the weight difference. That's obviously because of the hinge in the middle, the giant steel hinge. I mean, I've had people try to break them. I mean, I've heard of handcuffs being broken. I've never heard of a set of hinge being broken. I've only heard stories of some chains ones being broken, and I've never seen it. I've only heard stories. And if you ever get a guy who's strong enough to break handcuffs, I really would hate to be in that situation. So, I think that sums it up, guys. Like I said, this conversation and debate, it comes down to preference. Just like everything in law enforcement, it comes down to preference. Everybody carries their gear different. Everybody carries something different. It's all what we like and what works for us. What works for me is 1 set of hinged and 1 set of chained. And that's worked for me for as long as I've messed around with it, and I've come to the conclusion, I've tried just chained, I've tried just hinged, and I've come to the conclusion that I can't make my mind up, and I know that the different cuffs are better for different scenarios, and you want to have every item in your tool belt to I meant to say like your arsenal, not your tool belt, excuse me. You want to have every tool available to you in your arsenal that gives you an advantage, and the different handcuffs give you different advantages for different situations, yeah, guys. That sums it up. Any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, throw them in the comment section. I'll give you my answer. And yeah, guys, please shoot me a subscribe if you get a chance, and thank you. Have a good night.